One of the things that I want to talk a little bit about is this effort of how you're actually going to start to build credibility and how you're going to start to reach out to people. So one of the things that is really impactful and powerful about writing a book is getting people who you don't know, and in some ways you're surprised would say yes to an interview. And I think Matthew can tell some funny stories of people, his first book experience where, having people like Jesse Jackson and Madeleine Albright, who never did you think would be in your book, kind of came from playing the game the correct way. And so part of it is, I think, to think about this in the same way is how do you actually build your sort of process here so you can get people to say yes, you can get them to succeed. And one of the things we talked about a lot last week was this idea a bit about how you can start to use generosity to your advantage. How do you use this as your unfair advantage to basically build people up rather than just taking in that way? So that's the first thing. So before we sort of dive in too much to talk a little bit more about how we're going to start to use tonight's exercise, I want to spend just a couple minutes hearing how efforts went this week with you guys starting to use the power of generosity. So we talked about the 5-minute favor. What did you guys see when you started to do that, when you started to just be nice publicly and socially? Any interesting stories or examples that you saw from any of these efforts thus far you want to share?
My former professor, she's in psychology, and I was like, hey, I'll follow you on Twitter, I can put out your message. She was like, you don't have to do that. Like, she was like, I would have said yes anyway. It's totally fine. But it's just like going that extra mile. They're like, all right, like you're serious. If you take them seriously, then they'll take you seriously. Mm-hmm. So she's like, hey, like we can set an appointment, like it'll be fine. And so I think even though she said you didn't have to do that, in a way I'm glad I did, because she's like, all right, like he's willing to do that for me, and go out of his way, and no one asked him to do that. So she's gonna go out of her way and like help me out. So.
Yeah, I talked to a student today who'd been starting a book this summer, not through me, but she'd started a book this summer, and she said, quote, people don't take me seriously because I'm a student. And that's what she said when she reached out to people. I'd reach out to lots of professors, and what my response was to her is, are you reaching out like a student, or are you reaching out like a peer? And I think in some ways what Matthew's talking about is this idea to sort of reach out and say, hey, listen, I've been seeing what you're doing and this is a fit. I'm following you in those ways of thinking of yourself as a peer. And again, I understand it's a little weird because like the professor and student relationship can be a funny one. But I think part of this is you can't see yourself as this sort of meager, meek student, but you have to see them as a peer, whoever it is, to get sort of those things in it. So that's great.